You're probably thinking, what on earth is he doing with a strimmer out in November? And well, you'd be right really, but the lady who provides me with my water throughout the spring and summer season, she wanted to have some daffodils along here because there are daffodils further up. So she's actually supplied the daffodils. So I'm going to strim this and plant them for her. I'll get it done, I'll show you the daffodils. Well, there's a novelty, it's brightened up. So what have we got? 15 Narcissi tete-a-tete. Got 2 packets of those, so 30 of those. And yellow daffodils. Not sure how many there are in here. Looks to be probably about 50. So I'm going to space those out in clumps, I think, along here. Get the best display possible. Okay, they're all in. I'm sure they'll make a nice show come the spring. What I've got to do is just top those holes off with a bit of compost just to make sure the bulbs are covered. So that's next, and then I'm in the plot. Okay, well, yeah, it occurred to me that if I've got the strimmer out, I just as well get the grass off this area and that area behind the compost bins, because, well, I'm probably going to need to do some leveling up there. I'm thinking I'm going to put paving stones behind the compost bins. That'll be so much more durable for wheeling wheelbarrows in and out. And this area, not sure, but it makes sense just to get the grass off the top so I can see levels on both those areas. I strimmed in front of the polytunnel while I was here as well, and that'll be it for strimming this year. That machine's going away for the season, but it is useful to be able to see things. So next, I want to get these 2 pallets out, and they're under here. And well, let me show you. So I did turn the tap on and emptied this tank the other day. Loads of bindweed on it, and well, it's still heavy. It's fair to say it's still heavy, but I do need to get those out to finish the job. So I think what I'm going to do, one job just knocks into another, doesn't it? I'm going to drag this crate out, which has got pots and various bits and bobs in it, and that'll be a sorting job, but that'll enable me to tip this over onto its side and get access to these pallets. I'm not going to attempt to site these 2 IBC tanks in their final position until I've got these beds out, and probably until I've taken the sprouts out. The sprouts out. Have you seen these sprouts? Look at that. That's as good as I've ever grown, and I haven't ever grown many sprouts successfully, but I am delighted with those. They'll be going on the Christmas dinner table for sure. So they'll need to come out. That will have need to be resited. This will need to have come out, and same here. That will give me a complete empty stretch, and I figure that will be early on next year, and that will enable me to drag the IBC up to about here, drag that one back and release sufficient space to work in that area, because what I need to do is get 4 stanchions per individual IBC, nice and flat and reasonably high up. I'm figuring I'm going to use bricks and maybe some breeze blocks that I've had sight of. So they'll all go in there, and that'll enable me free movement all the way up. So I've got quite a bit to do before I get there, but I do want to topple that tank and get those crates out. You can see here the slope on this area behind the compost bins, It's just that much higher on the left hand side. And I'm figuring that if I can just take out about 2 foot strip, turn it over onto the other side, I should be able to get level relatively quickly. And that'll be a good base on which to start siting paving stones. And well, that's to come. So yeah, down there, tidy that up, get those crates out. I'm in. That wasn't too difficult, but I am going to make life easier for myself by clipping away all this bramble, which can sit in the hedge. In a funny way, the bramble creates a decent barrier for the allotments, because if anybody's going to gain access, I don't think it's going to be through this direction, given that it would be quite a painful experience. So I try to maintain this bramble fence. It does have its downsides, of course, because it's very vigorous in the summer and tends to harbour a lot of stinging nettles like these. But hey, it's good for security. Although if somebody really wanted to get in, they'd probably just climb over the gates a bit further up the allotment. Right, I'm going to clear these out and then see if I can just pull that down on its side. I'm trying to keep things tidy as I go along. It won't be long before the weather is that bad. I really don't feel like tidying up pots and trays and things like that. So I'm trying to bring it in here as I go. And it's not perfect, but one of these days it's going to be too cold out there. It's blooming warm in here today. And when it is too cold out there, I should get in here and have a glorious tidy up ready for the sowing season. That's the plan anyway. Let's have a look at these beans while I'm here. Well, there's one fallen on the deck, but you can actually hear them rattling now, which is fantastic, and they're all turning that papery brown colour. The green ones, of course, they're later picks, but they will get to this stage and are nearly ready to take all those brown ones and shell them. So they're coming on nicely, especially in this mild weather we're having. Well, it was good to move that, not least because I realise how heavy they are now. I'd forgotten. So I'm going to need some help when I get to shifting them up and down. I have to give that some thought. But doesn't it look different already once you move away from that bed? And I figure that ultimately, if that box is still up to it, I've got my doubts, but it could sit there and form a barrier to the rest of this space, but we'll see. In the meantime, I've got the 2 pallets out, which is what I wanted. And interestingly, they are 2 different types. One that I think is the taller variety, that's a bit longer, and one that's shallower, more square. So I'm going to get them up to that end and see how I can space those out and how they'll work. Right, I'll wheel them. Well, you might be able to see the rain setting in good and proper. So I think my day's going to be drawn short, but that looks good. So that's 2 of the longer, taller ones on the outside, which actually works well because it enables really good access with the wheelbarrow. And then the gap down here I know is enough for the wheelbarrow. That one might have to shifty through a bit longer. But they're in place and they look quite reasonable. I can see me getting those fixed reasonably quick. I'll live with it for a day or 2, just in case I think I might have made an error, but first shot, I'm pretty pleased with it. Well, you'll remember I hooked out all this hose and some of these water containers from this area, and in there I've got 5 pavers and some membrane, which is part of my moving out of this area and partly useful for gathering all my resources together to understand what I've got to work with. So I'm going to get those 5 pavers out and just see what condition and what size that membrane is. Now, those pieces weren't too big, but in the interest of keeping the psychological motivation up, I'm just going to spread them down here, and it gives me a feel for what things will look like once I've got all this area covered. So I've got this bar down here which can go along the edge nicely, and a few spare bricks. And that should start to give me some sort of idea how things will look. And of course it will kill off the grass as well, which, given that I'm covering this area over, it's not a problem. Good times. On a warm but wet South Wales. I hope you've enjoyed the video today. And if you did, why not like and subscribe? And you can get my uploads every Wednesday and every Sunday at 8 PM if you click on the bell. I hope your week is not too wet and you get some work done. It's always good to get things finished off at this time of year. Good times.